Yes, I'm impressed. Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer, and this is probably the best lens of its kind at the moment. Let's take a closer look at this Sony 24-70mm F2.8 G Master Mark II. And without any small talk, I'm gonna jump right into the most important part and let you know that this is optically an excellent lens. It's very sharp at every aperture, it handles backlight exceptionally, the bokeh is very smooth for a zoom lens, and in my opinion it doesn't have bad habits at all. So it's quite awesome actually. The sweet spot is from about f5.6 to f11, which is typical for a full frame lens, but also wide open, this lens is really good, and I would not hesitate to shoot at f2.8 even in the most demanding situation. The autofocus is super fast and very smooth, and it should be because there are a total of 4 linear motors inside here to take care of the job. Focus breathing is also not a problem. You can see it, but it's definitely not distracting in any situation. Short but big thanks to Sony Finland for lending me this lens and this camera so I can make this video for you guys. And this camera is the A7R Mark IV, the one with 60 megapixels. And I really like the aperture ring on this lens, and I'm so happy to see that Sony is going to make it, at least it looks like Sony is going to make it a standard feature on their G Master and G series lenses. Aperture rings are great, especially if you have a camera that only has one proper command dial. Then with the aperture ring you have a second command dial, and if you prefer to use manual exposure mode, then it's a lot easier when you have a dedicated dial for the aperture and the shutter speed. And you can also declick the aperture ring if you prefer a smooth ring for whatever reason. There are 2 buttons for vertical and horizontal shooting, and the zoom has 2 settings, tight and smooth. With the tight setting you can still zoom, but it's very difficult to accidentally change the setting, and that is good for those situations where you really want that zoom setting to stay put. And of course, this is also weather sealed like a proper professional lens. I really think this lens handles beautifully on this A7R Mark IV camera body, or on any A7 camera body for that matter. And it's definitely not too big or heavy even for a walk-around lens or photo walk lens. But I think if I was choosing a lens for a photo walk, I would prefer a 24-105 f4, because I think that range would be much more practical for a photo walk lens, and I don't need f2.8 on such a lens. This lens actually looks bigger and heavier than it really is, especially with the hood on, and the hood needs to be big like this, otherwise it would not serve any purpose. And there is also this little latch on the hood, which is good for polarizers and other filters that rotate. The filter size is 82mm, which is quite large, but it prevents unwanted vignetting when there is actually a filter mounted on the lens. And even though the filter size is quite large, the lens barrel narrows down right after the front element, and the main body of the lens is quite slim actually for such a lens. And this lens weighs about 758 grams with the hood. But of course, this is not a super tiny lens. It's a 24-70 F2.8. What do you expect? If you really want a super tiny, compact, lightweight lens, there are many other options to choose from. You're never gonna buy a lens like this because it's a super tiny and compact lens. A 24-70mm zoom lens is, I think, kind of boring lens. It's a very versatile tool for a professional photographer in many situations, but these lenses are usually not very exciting. They don't have any really super exciting features. The maximum aperture f2.8 is kind of modest, and 70mm is not that long. I mean, it's not a proper telephoto. You can't get that proper compressed telephoto look into your photos, but still these are very versatile and I think pretty much a must for a professional photographer. With that being said, this range is still very useful from landscapes to portraits and everything in between. And this f2.8 maximum aperture gives a professional photographer a little bit of flexibility in those low light action situations, or ability to blur a busy background, for example. And if you have 60 megapixels, this 70mm is not so short either. You can crop to APS-C size and still have 26 megapixels. I came to Helsinki Botanical Gardens to test the new Sony lens, and I happened to bump into Alexi, my friend, and
Surprise.
Alexi is also a Sony user, so I decided to ask, how do you like, Alexi, this new Sony 24-70mm lens, now that you have handled it for about 2 minutes?
Yeah, it's immediately quite obvious that it is smaller than what you would expect from a 24-70 2.8 compared to the previous version, compared to other ones I've used before, the Nikon ones, the Canon ones, and even the new Samyang 24-70 is much larger than this. So it feels nice and reasonably sized.
How would you like to take a few pictures on that lens? Why don't we test the macro or the close-up capabilities, because Sony says it's much better than the previous lens. It can focus much closer.
Well, this is the place, botanical gardens, flowers and everything. Let's try it.
Yes.
All right, let's test the close focusing capabilities. You were saying they're better than the previous version. And I do love flowers and botanical gardens, so this is the place to test. Seems quite good. I can get very close. Let's try this one. Yeah, not bad. There we go, that's the closest. You want to try also?
Yeah, this really focuses close. I mean, I can almost touch the flower with the front element, and I think I need to remove the lens shade, because otherwise it is going to shade my beautiful flower picture too. 70mm, let's try 24. The same flower. Yes, I'm impressed. It was so good to see you, Alexi, and thanks.
You too, yeah.
And thanks for sharing your opinion on this lens. Your first impressions.
My pleasure. It was really nice trying it in the wild. And we got to do a photo walk soon again, before the summer is over.
Definitely. This Sony 24-70mm f2.8 G Master Mark II is not a cheap lens. It's in €2,300 or US dollar price range. And I think this is very much a lens for a professional. But of course, it's suitable for anyone without any kind of budget constraints. Fortunately, there are some excellent third-party options for those on a tight budget. One such option is this Tamron 28-75mm F2.8 Mark II, and there's also the Sigma 28-70mm F2.8. Both this Tamron and the Sigma are excellent lenses. They only go to 28mm at the wide end, but they also go for less than 1,000 euros or US dollars. Both these Tamron and the Sigma are a really good value for money and suitable for, like I said, those on a tight budget. But if you want the best standard zoom lens for your Sony, then this is the lens to get. I hope you enjoyed this little lens review, and if you'd like to support my channel, please consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that if you don't live in Finland. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again in the next one.